Welcome to New Release Today's Couples Corner, where we interview couples in the music industry.
We are your hosts, Danny and Janie, and we love to ask the fun, love-filled questions so you can get to know the couples behind the music.
Caleb and Kelsea Yetton are longtime members of The Rock Music, a collective of spirit-led, Christ-centered worshipers flourishing for more than 2 decades as a ministry of the Rock Church in Salt Lake City.
No One Knows Me Like You, the latest release from The Rock Music, is a 5-song EP which spotlights Caleb and Kelsea.
They're an authentic, transparent, and vulnerable couple not afraid to talk about the hard things in life and are such a gift to the body of Christ and to the music industry.
Their hearts are for people to know they are fully known and fully loved by God. We are so blessed to have them on NRT's Couples Corner today.
Welcome, Caleb and Kelsea.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having us. We're excited to be here.
Absolutely. Well, we are so excited to have you guys on here today, and we would love if we could just kick off this interview with you guys just sharing a little bit about yourselves.
Sure. Yeah. So we are in Salt Lake City, Utah at the Rock Church as our ministry. I'm a pastor there, and we've been married for 15 years. We have 4 kids, ages 12, 10, 8, and 6. So we've got a busy household. Kelsea homeschools our kids, and my full-time job is being a pastor at our church and helping with our music ministry. So that's kind of a quick snapshot there about our lives.
That's awesome. So we just got married 6 months ago. So what newlywed advice do you have
Oh, wow. Congrats.
Thank you. So what advice do you have
awesome.
for newlyweds out there?
Ooh.
Oh, yeah.
I think off the top of my head, I would just say your personal connection with the Lord and like spending time in His Word and prayer so that He can convict and help you navigate a life together. Because I don't know, for us at the beginning it was very tumultuous, and we both have very strong personalities, very strong opinions, very stubborn, and so learning to be a servant of each other took a lot, like learning to die to yourself. And I think the only way is through the Holy Spirit and His help getting through those different things. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, that's good. I think, too, something that's really helpful practically that took us a long time. We were pretty young when we got married, but was communication and over-communicating and communicating your schedule, your plans, your desires for what you want to do, even just day-to-day things. That was something we had to grow in that caused a lot of tension and needing to work through. And then also communicating your emotions and your feelings. That took us a while to figure out, how do I share what I'm feeling, expectations that I have, and so we could communicate through that. We had a lot of unspoken expectations in day-to-day things and in our relationship and how we showed affection towards each other. And when we left that unspoken and we didn't communicate those, it's hard for the other person to meet that if they don't know what they're trying to meet. So that was a big one. And then just dying to yourself. Obviously, that's super difficult, and Jesus calls us to that every day in every aspect of our life, but especially for our spouse to put their needs before your own. It's hard to take your eyes off yourself, so we're still learning that one. And all of them, but
For sure.
God's helped us.
So good. So much wisdom. I know, it's so good. I feel like I'm definitely the over communicator. My husband told me one time, he's like, "You talk a lot."
She talks in her sleep.
There you go.
I was like, I just want to make sure I'm communicating. So.
Yes.
Awesome.
All right. Well, very good. Well, we're going to do some rapid-fire questions here.
Yeah, so what
Okay.
we're going to do is just spitfire some questions at you, and you'll either point at yourself or you'll point at the other person, depending on who you think this better applies to.
All right, here we go.
Sounds great.
Who is the better cook? Oh, there we go.
Who's the better driver?
Who's funnier?
I think she's pretty good.
We have a tie.
Who
Yes.
snores louder? Who snores louder?
Do either of us
I don't
snore?
think
I don't
We haven't
think
told each other yet.
Yeah.
Who's the cheapskate?
Who is crazier?
Yeah.
Who is more romantic?
Kelsey.
I don't know. I'd say Ty again. I'm not.
Would have a tie?
Who's more of the clean freak?
Depends on what it is, what area. Certain things we care about, certain things we don't, and they don't agree.
Who is the most competitive, Janice?
Ooh. We're both very competitive.
We don't like to lose. No.
I have a fun card game that I love, and no one has ever beat me in it, but as soon as he beat me in it, I quit playing, so...
Yeah, what game was it?
It's called Blink, where you have to, like, get rid of your cards the quickest.
Ooh,
Super
I haven't
fun.
tried it.
And no one
Yeah,
has
even
ever
just...
until him, and I'm like...
That's awesome. We'll have to look that game up.
Yes.
I love card games.
All right, last one is who said I love you first?
I did. I think I did.
Mm.
Yeah. It was a long time ago, so it's hard to remember.
Yeah.
Okay, so we would love at Couples Corner if you would tell the world your love story.
Yeah. So I knew of Kelsey before she ever met me or knew of me. She was leading worship with her youth band at our church before I even was an attender of our local church. I would go visit sometimes because I heard about the good music that was happening there. I was going to another church with my parents, but they had a Saturday night service that was cool and hip, so I would go. And one time when I showed up, Kelsey's band was leading worship, and it was the first time I saw her. And I was like, oh, I want to marry a girl like that one day. I was just flabbergasted by her love for the Lord, her musicianship, her voice. She was a songwriter even back then. And so I knew of her and kind of liked her as I saw her from time to time. But then one day, I fast forward a few months later, I was going through some things and started attending the Rock Church and went to a young adult gathering that my friend invited me to. And we were just playing like ultimate frisbee. And that was the first time she saw me or took notice of me. And I'll say for her, it was love at first sight. We know that now. No, it really was. It seemed like there was this connection right away of like, oh, this is something different. I'll let her share what she felt when she saw me, because that's funny.
Yeah, we always joke about it because the first time I saw him, I feel like he was wearing a white shirt, white shorts, white shoes, and a white hat, and he's always like, "No, I wasn't.
It wasn't all white."
What you thought it was? I'm like, no, like, and I was just like, why is he wearing all white? But for some reason, it was really like right away, just an instant connect. Like I was like, I want to know this guy. I don't know why. I just like right away just felt a tug for that, and so. Then we started becoming friends, and
she made the first move.
Yes, So I had been texting out friends like Bible verses periodically, and I kind of had a list. And so
with flip phones.
Yeah, with our flip phones. It took a while back then. And to a friend of mine that I knew was friends with him, I'm like, hey, could you get me Caleb's number? I want to add him to my, verse list so I can send him out verses. And so I got his number to start talking to him. So, and I did send him verses too.
Mm-hmm. Did you send him like Solomon? I am my beloved.
Right.
Exactly.
Pretty much.
Exactly. Yep. So we were again pretty young. I was right out of high school, and we were both at a time that we knew we liked each other, but we were also trying to be protective of each other and ourselves and our church. And I just made a mess of my life coming out of high school and needed to really grow in a lot of areas. And at the same time, too, she was moving to help start a church plant, another location of our church, about 45 minutes south. And so it was this feeling of like, maybe we'll see what the Lord has, but it didn't seem the right timing. So we spent about a year and a half trying every opportunity to get in the same circles and hang out with each other, but to not intentionally make progress in our relationship, but also like kind of taking one step too far forward, and then be like, well, we still need to work on ourselves, and we're growing, and we're in different places. And so that was our dance for a while. We also were both very stubborn and insecure in our own ways, and so we were working through that. And I started hanging out with her dad, who was one of our pastors as well at our church, and getting discipled by him. And he was kind of like, I need to figure out what this guy's all about. And so a lot of growth, but a lot of tension there too that we were working through in our personal lives. And so eventually I moved down to that location of our church plant, and we started officially dating, and then got engaged, and got married 15 years ago now. So that's
that is
quick,
awesome.
quick version, more long version maybe, I guess, too.
I love it. Caleb, how did you propose?
It was a long, drawn-out process. I kept her hanging over and over. We did like I forget the term for it now, but a progressive dinner. So I went to all these different places that we had shared dates or moments where we had connected, and had like an appetizer here, and then my parents and some other friends were helping drop off different stages of the meal at different spots. So we would get to this place that was significant to us, and there would be a platter with food, and she'd be like, where's all this coming from? And we went to this one spot up in Salt Lake City that's in the mountains, and you overlook the whole valley. And we had some pretty deep conversations there through our dating, and even before we were dating. And that's where the entree was, and everything was teed up to propose. And I was like, all right, let's go. And we packed everything up and drove an hour back down to where we lived. It was a pretty silent, awkward drive. It was like, weren't you supposed to be proposing? That was the tension there. You could feel it, though we didn't say it. And then we drove to the park that we had discussed having our wedding at, because once we were dating, it was like, this is where we're headed. So, but I went to the park that we were going to get married at, or we're planning to, and there was some hot chocolate waiting there, and we walked over to the spot where we ended up getting married and taking our vows, and I proposed there. So.
Aww.
So pretty romantic.
Yeah. I know, he's got this whole thing set up for you, and you're like, seriously, bro, when are you gonna propose?
Yes, I'm like,
what was all that for?
happening?
Oh, that's
It was
so
amazing.
Fun.
I think I kept stooping down to tie my shoes.
Yeah, he kept he was proposing, and it was just
Love it.
set up with all my favorite things too, and ice cream and all the things. And he's like, "Oh, I need to tie my shoe," and I'm like, "Oh my god!"
Here we go again.
You're like, what is this?
And
I
the
love
funniest part too was after he proposed, like I was like, "Your mom's over there recording," and like whatever. And he like looks, he's like, "That's not my mom," and we don't know who it is. Still,
That's amazing.
and
So
of us getting engaged. So
You're like, excuse me, could you give that to me?
Right, yeah.
just popped the first laugh. I was like, "Okay, well, that was funny."
That's amazing.
That's amazing.
That's so good.
All right, so we are gonna end out our podcast today by asking questions from our couple
Couple
love.
love.
All right, so we just have some random questions in here. So, you want to go first, babe?
Yes. All right. What are some of the unique challenges you face as a couple in the Christian music industry, and how do you overcome them?
Yeah, it's a good question. For us, it's maybe formatted a little differently. Again, our number one focus is our ministry of our church, after obviously our family and our kids and all that. But for our music is definitely ministry focused for our local church. And over the last couple of years, God's been kind and given us opportunity to share that story outside of our walls, our four walls. But definitely our first focus is for our church, to bless them, to lead worship, to write original music that is unique to our local context here in Salt Lake City. It's a very unique place to do ministry. And so there's always challenges in that of just ministry in general. Kelsea is a very talented musician, singer, songwriter, but there's challenges definitely with our just family dynamic and homeschooling little kids. She's not able to be involved as much as back in the day before we had kids. So that's a challenge, finding the schedule where it fits, when we can record, when we can write, when we can have her lead worship with the team, because it definitely blesses our church. But I'd say that's one challenge, figuring out that balance, because we want to be a good parents, we want to prioritize our kids, and but also take opportunities when we can to play music for the Lord and share that. And I don't know if you have one.
Yeah, I was gonna pretty much agree with that. I think just like the balance of home life with our kids, and when we lead worship at church, if Caleb leads worship very often, but when I come to it, that means the kids are there for 3 services, and so it's kind of like weighing that out depending on the week. It doesn't make sense, does it not? And just kind of trying to seek the Lord and see what is a good fit. So I'll jump in, every now and then, definitely not as often as him, but then it's definitely a blessing with homeschooling, even with recording, the little bit that we have, having that flexible schedule with the kids. And they love the music, they love the worship, and they love being at church. And I think part of that is because they've grown up being there a lot. It's their second home. So I am really thankful for that. But it definitely is a challenge. Sometimes it's just not right. And it's, and that's been good. We've been able to find that. We're learning to find that balance. But sometimes it's like, I did want to go do that with him this weekend, but it's just not going to work out. And that's just what the Lord has. So,
yeah. Have you guys seen the documentary by, it's Casting Crowns. It's called Back by Sunday. I think it's on Amazon Prime. It is so good. But you guys know Casting Crowns, their heart is for the local church, and that's their ministry first. And then, so their whole thing was we'll go out and do what God's called us to do, but we're going to be back by Sunday. And so, anyway.
That's so good. Yeah, we'll have to check that out.
Yeah, we should watch that. Amazon Prime, okay.
Yeah, that's great. I think a lot of that is just trusting God's sovereignty.
Yeah.
When there's opportunity, we have a number of musicians in our church in different bands and recording opportunities. We've been doing it for 20 years, like you said earlier, recording our own original music. And even in that, there's tension of we all want to play and have opportunity, and God has a different plan at different times and different seasons. So trusting His sovereignty is something we've had to work through for our own individual selves, and also as a couple, and for our music, and trusting that God's going to do what He's going to do. But ultimately, if we can bless His heart and worship Him, and then bless our local church, that can be enough. And so we're excited to share that story as often as we can with those around. So
I love that. I love your guys' hearts. It's so beautiful. All right, our next couple of questions says, can you share a particular moment or project that has been especially meaningful or impactful in your career as a couple?
Yeah, the current project we're doing right now has been pretty meaningful. Again, it's hard to say for us. We're ministry first, so to save in career is we definitely our heart is for the church, and whatever comes of that. And so, but our newest project, No One Knows Me Like You, is a project we've been working on for a couple of years. There's a few songs we've written years ago, even one that Kelsey wrote before we even met, and we recorded it for this project. So there was a lot of history and meaning in that. We've played it, but never been able to record it. One that we wrote, our first song that we ever wrote as a couple, is on that project. So that was really meaningful. We had done a live version of it years ago, but we were able to do a full studio version this time around. It's got some covers that are pretty meaningful to our local congregation that our church loves to sing, and we've put our own little spin. And then the title track for the EP is a song I wrote last year with a couple friends and recorded it this year. And it was it's been a fun to see how God uses it and meets people in it. It's a song about struggling. I'm a pretty insecure, self-judging person in my own mind. A lot of voices, or hearing my self-talk about who I am, what I've done. Do I connect? Do people understand me? Do I understand me? And so it was a song writing about God understanding me. He knows my doubts, my fears, my sin, my shame, my guilt that I carry around at times, choose to pick back up, even though he's taking care of it. And so he sees all that. He knows me unlike anyone else, and yet he loves me unlike anyone else. I have a home in him. I can let go of my burdens with him because he knows it. I don't have to seek to be understood. He just understands me. And so it's been a meaningful project. In that, throughout this whole project, there's been a lot of healing and also grief, that just as a family, Kelsey's mother passed away last year from cancer. And so that's been woven through it all, even, and her influence and legacy in our lives has been even in the music, not always even consciously, but in the midst of that, some doubts and fears and questioning of God, of why, that there's been some healing, some singing about heaven and about his salvation and about worshiping him and what are we prioritizing our life for and around, and what are we giving our life to. And so this project, it's our most current one, so it's easy to be on in front of our mind, but it's been meaningful, and we've been thankful for the opportunity to put some music out with all of that around it. That was a long answer, sorry.
No, that was so good. And I just love your authenticity. And I remember a few years ago in my own ministry, like the Lord really challenging me, just the value that is in being vulnerable so that people can just know they're not alone. And so I just love your guys' heart and your willingness to just be vulnerable with people. And it's such a gift to the body of Christ. And so we just want to, it's very refreshing. So
thank you
guys for all that you're doing. We're so thankful that you guys took time to be on here today and just share your hearts. And we would love if you would just let people know, like, how can they find your music? How can they connect with you guys beyond the interview?
Yeah. We're on most of the social media platforms. It's just The Rock Music. It's not the most original name, but our church is The Rock Church, and so we just swapped one word out there. On Instagram, you can search The Rock Music, Facebook, TikTok, all those places, YouTube as well. Our website is therockmusic.org, so all of our music is on there, and links, and all the streaming platforms too. You can just search that. You can search Caleb Yetton or Kelsea Yetton, that should pull it up too. But a lot of different ways you can find it. And we're just so thankful for the opportunity to share. Thank you for having us today.
Yes,
that's so fun.
My heart's so encouraged just talking to you guys. It was awesome. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to New Release Today's Couples Corner, and we will see you guys next time.
All right, bye.